Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I'm going to be doing my review of the F1 Azerbaijan Grand Prix 2023. So both Ocon and Hulkenberg are starting from the pit lane. Ocon as a result of the changes that his team made before the sprint yesterday, and also Hulkenberg because they've decided that he'd rather start with Magnussen's setup for the car. So they both start from the pit lane. The track was 7 degrees hotter than yesterday, so the commentators were suggesting that maybe there would be a bit more tire management. Maybe we would even see a two-stop strategy for some teams. So Leclerc started on pole, Verstappen started alongside. Everyone was on the medium tires except for De Vries, Ocon, and Hulkenberg. Lap 1 there was a bit of contact at the back. Bottas basically got shoved out wide at turn 2 and basically looked like he got a bit of damage from that exit wall at turn 2. Stroll was up to 7th and Leclerc held the lead over the first lap. Lap 3, Verstappen has a low look going into turn 3, the first chance with DRS of course. And lap 4, Verstappen breezes past Leclerc for P1 at turn 1. So the move basically happens as soon as they get the chance with DRS. Lap 5, I know that teams were already suffering a bit with dirty air and were starting to spread out a little bit. Lap 6, Perez overtakes Leclerc for P2 at turn 1, and Gasly pits for hard. So really early stop for Gasly, and so possible two-stop strategy, I thought, for him. And for Leclerc, I think really it's unfortunate that the overtakes by the Red Bulls happened so early, but I think the reality is that overall the Red Bull car is a much better car, and their aero efficiency and straight line speed with DRS is so much better that any chance that you give them with DRS, similar to last year, they have an extremely high chance of overtaking you. But so not really Leclerc's fault there. I think same lap, Stroll says on the radio he won't attack Alonso because he was starting to close in low on Alonso, who was attacking Hamilton. So nice team play there by Stroll. Bottas also pitched for hards. Lap 8, Albon pits for hards as well. Lap 9, so the pit stops are quite early this race. So Tsunoda, Piastri, and Sargent all pit. And Alonso is starting to game a bit on Hamilton as his tires start to go away. Lap 10, Hamilton pits and Norris as well. And Hamilton comes out 13th. So he ends up stuck behind that gaggle of cars, including Ocon and Hulkenberg. There's a yellow flag in Sector 1. So there was actually two different yellow flags. First one was because Magnussen looks like he went down one of the escape roads, I think at turn 3. And then we got a second yellow flag moments later. De Vries going into turn 5, he basically clipped the inside wall and ended up breaking the front suspension. So a bit of a clumsy mistake there by De Vries, so he ends up kind of stopped at the exit of turn 6. He can't get the car any further because the suspension's broken. So a safety car is called, and I know this really hurt Hamilton and Verstappen. Verstappen had basically pit right before the safety car was called. So he basically lost out in terms of delta to all the cars around him quite a bit. And they were discussing, and the commentators were discussing, whether this was a mistake, whether this was a deliberate call. I think they weren't entirely sure. I think they knew that their cars were probably too close together to do a double stack in the pit lane. And I think maybe they didn't think that the safety car was going to get called, so they just brought him in. And maybe they thought, it would be a VSC. Hard to say. Russell basically jumped Stroll in the pit, so even though Russell was behind, he basically kind of did what Seb Vettel did in China all those years ago, and basically overtakes the cars in the pit lane. It's a bit of a scary moment, but luckily nothing happened. And I know this was the third race in a row where a safety car or a red flag has really affected race strategy. So we haven't really had a proper strategy race since Bahrain. So obviously not really a surprise given that we've had 3 street circuits in a row in Jeddah, Australia, and now in Baku. So, but again, I think for those who really enjoy the strategy, it's a bit unfortunate. Lap 13, safety car ended that lap. Stroll passes Russell really cleanly going into turn 2, and Verstappen overtakes Leclerc right away. Alonso overtakes Sainz for P6 at turn 6 for P4, so that was a really good move by Alonso. I think a really unconventional overtaking zone as well. And Hamilton also got Russell at turn 1 for P7 the following lap. Perez was noted for an unsafe release. He was a bit close to Leclerc when Leclerc was coming in, but I think there was enough of a margin that wasn't an unsafe release, and and indeed there was no further investigation necessary. Stroll was lucky not to break his suspension on lap 17. He basically made the same mistake De Vries did, only he was lucky and the suspension didn't break, and he was able to keep going, but he clipped the same wall. And also noted that lap, Russell, no further action for the pit lane incident. So this is kind of where all of the results of the qualifying, as well as the results from the safety car, the mixed upgrade from the safety car kind of started to have happened by now. And basically the grid was really starting to spread out, and there was basically three different trains throughout the field, as we would later see. So lap 19, Stroll was struggling a bit, and Hamilton overtakes Stroll into turn 1 for P6. Lap 21, Russell was also catching Stroll, so Stroll made a bit of a mistake and he was struggling a bit with his tires. Lap 24, Gasly pits for Hards for a second stop, and the Ocon train was basically holding up Norris, Tsunoda, and Piastri, who were basically in that net 10th, 9th, and 11th place, because both Ocon and Hülkenberg had yet to pit, and they were basically going to try and go as far as possible and hoping that there would be a late safety car. Lap 27, Hülkenberg glances the wall at the entry of turn 15, so a bit of a scruffy moment there for Hülkenberg, but nothing major. Lap 31, Alonso was starting to get closer to Leclerc. Lap 33, Gasly overtakes Bottas at turn 1 for P18. I noted that low, as in there's that low action throughout the field, that we're getting the action from P18 on camera on screen. So yeah, it really shows how the field was really spread out, and there was not that many on-track battles at this point. Lap 35, Perez clips the same wall as Hülkenberg at turn 15, but again, no damage there. Ferrari tells Sainz that they're happy with his tires and that he's happy to go for a one stop. So they're pretty much all of the teams except for both Bottas and Gasly opted for a one stop, and I think that was the correct call-in strategy. Let's see, and then right after lap 37, Bottas pits again, and Alonso had started dropping back from Leclerc, so I think at this point he was just saving tires. Zhou, unfortunately for him, boxes with an issue and retires, so he looked pretty good. This race, unfortunately, very similar to the start of last year, with tires with a mechanical issue. Lap 41, Hamilton still chasing Sainz. Gasly overtakes Sargent at turn 1 for P16, so another move by Gasly. Lap 46, Hülkenberg finally gets past Norris at turn 7 for P1. Hülkenberg made a bit of a mistake, went a bit wide, and Norris took advantage. Following lap, Tsunoda takes advantage as well and finally gets past Hülkenberg at turn 1, which I think really shows that the fact that Tsunoda was able to get past Hülkenberg shows that he was, I think the AlphaTauri maybe has a bit more straight line speed. It could also be the Hülkenberg's mistake dropped him out of the DRS of Ocon, so he was no longer able to hold off the faster cars going into turn 1. Following lap 49, Albon overtakes Hülkenberg for turn 1. Russell goes low deep in turn 1, but no harm done. Lap 50, Russell pits for softs for fastest lap. Lap 51, Hülkenberg pits for softs. Ocon still hasn't pit yet. And we get this really scary moment in the pit lane where basically Ocon was right in front of Perez and Verstappen, race leaders. So he was not a lap down, but he was very, very close to a lap down. So as, like, I'd say 20 seconds or so before Perez crossed the checkered flag, usually they close the pit lane and the press and the media start coming out from the pit garage. And they basically hadn't even realized that Ocon still had to pit, so they had these fences up, and there were people basically, like tons of people in the pit lane as Ocon's pitting. And I know Ted Kravitz was like on the radio going absolutely nuts about this, and I think rightfully so. We could have easily had multiple fatalities if people had not moved out of the way, or if there was more people there. And I think also good on Ocon for stopping as quickly as he did, and noticing that there was clearly something not right. So Ocon basically pits moments before the checkered flag, and Russell gets fastest lap of the line. So Checo Perez gets his second win of the season, takes the checkered flag, and also gets driver of the day for his efforts. So overall, I thought not a fantastic race. I think there was some overtakes towards the beginning and after the safety car, but I think I already said this yesterday. I think the track's not super conducive to good close racing. Part of that is just the nature of the circuit. Lots of 90-degree corners. There's only one line through many of the corners, so that means that the following car always has to be in the same kind of position as the car in front, so they lose downforce, they lose time following cars through the corners. In contrast with maybe more permanent circuits like Silverstone, for example, I used this example yesterday as well, but tracks where you have more than one line, where you can adjust your line a little bit and you can kind of minimize the effects of the dirty air. Those are really the tracks I think are really good for close racing. So let's go over the results of the race. Perez first, obviously Verstappen second, Leclerc third, fourth Alonso, fifth Sainz, sixth Hamilton, seventh Stroll, eighth Russell, also got fastest lap, ninth Norris, 10th Tsunoda. I think fantastic result for Tsunoda. AlphaTauri looking like they have a bit of a better car this weekend, but Tsunoda I think deserves a lot of credit as well. 11th Piastri, 12th Albon, 13th Magnussen, 14th Gasly, 15th Ocon. So after being in 9th place for the majority of the race, the late pit stop drops Ocon down to 15th, Sargent 16th, Hulkenberg 17th, Bottas 18th, and your two retirements are Zhou and Nick de Vries. Your championship standings after 4 rounds are Verstappen in first with 93 points. Perez is starting to close the gap on him, 87 points. Alonso still in third with 60 points. Hamilton fourth with 48 points. Sainz fifth with 34 points. Leclerc sixth with 28 points. Seventh Russell also with 28 points. Eighth Stroll was 27 points. Norris in ninth with 10 points. So that big gap between 8th and 9th in the championship is really starting to build. Hulkenberg 10th with 6 points, Piastri 11th with 4 points, Bottas 12th also with 4 points, Ocon 13th with 4 points as well, 14th Gasly again with 4 points, 15th Zhou with 2 points, 16th Tsunoda also with 2 points, so doubling his points total this weekend. Tsunoda, 17th Albon, 18th Magnussen, both with 1 point, and your two drivers yet to get off the mark are Sargent in 19th and Nick de Vries in last. Just to round off, Constructors' Championship. So first, Red Bull with 180. Second, Aston Martin with 87. Third, Mercedes with 76. Fourth, Ferrari with 62. So that battle, I think, is going to be really fantastic. That battle between second, third, and fourth, I think, is going to be probably the one to watch this year because, you know, Red Bull are way too far ahead. McLaren fifth with 14. Sixth, Alpine with 8th. Seventh, Haas with 7 points. 8th Alfa Romeo with 6 points, 9th AlphaTauri with 2 points, and last Williams with 1 point. So I think overall not a fantastic race, probably the most boring race of the season so far. It'll be interesting to see how things go next week. Of course, we have our first doubleheader coming up in Miami as well. So that should be an interesting race. Unfortunately, another street circuit, but that should be fun. I will be traveling next weekend, so it'll be interesting to see if I can film quality on time. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I think regardless, I'll try to have the preview out in advance, and then I'll have quality whenever I get to it. And the race, I think I should be able to do right after the race. So thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again next time. Goodbye.